The night before my sister was set to marry into the prestigious Ashton family, she finally spoke her mind. "Lindsay," she began, her voice soft as ever, "I don't think you should be my maid of honor tomorrow." I was in the middle of fastening a bracelet I'd strung myself onto her wrist, and for a moment, I wasn't sure I'd heard her right. Her voice was a familiar, fragile whisper. "I know you're my only sister, but the vitiligo on your face." She let the words hang in the air. "People will talk. I don't want Liam to think I'm like a flawed gem." She finally dropped the act. "Frankly, having you stand next to me is embarrassing." My hands froze. I never imagined she could think of me that way. Our mother draped a cashmere shawl over her shoulders, her silence a clear endorsement of Rachel's words. "You've been good to me, Lindsay. You've always given me everything since we were kids," Rachel continued, as if that made it better. "But tomorrow is the most important day of my life. Liam's family is so prominent. I can't have his friends mocking him, saying my family isn't presentable." My gaze fell to the bracelet in my hand, a string of 108 lustrous pearls. I had chosen, polished, and threaded each one myself. It was supposed to be a part of her dowry, a gift from my heart. Now, it seemed, it was just another imperfection. Slowly, I unclasped the bracelet from her wrist and placed it back into its velvet box. "All right," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Rachel let out a visible sigh of relief. "Oh, Lindsay, you're the best. I knew you'd understand." Mom stroked Rachel's long, silky hair, her eyes brimming with pride. "That's enough standing around. Go get some rest. You need to be the most beautiful bride tomorrow." I quietly gathered the accessories I had prepared for the bridal party, packing each piece away. I should have been used to it by now. It all started when I was 13. That summer, after a severe illness, a coin-sized white patch appeared on my left cheek. At first, my parents were frantic, taking me to every specialist they could find. But 6 months later, my 11-year-old sister, Rachel, noticed a similar patch on her back while bathing. The atmosphere in our home turned heavy overnight. The doctors called it an autoimmune disorder. The treatment would be long, expensive, and offered no guarantee of a cure. I was thirsty late one night and overheard my parents arguing in their room. "Treat them both?" My father's voice was strained. "The business is barely off the ground. Where are we going to find that kind of money?" My mother's reply was a low, chilling whisper. "Then we choose one. Rachel is still so young. Her life is just beginning. Besides," she added, "hers is on her back. It's hidden. The chances of a full recovery are much higher." "And Lindsay?" my father asked. "Lindsay, she's the older sister. She's sensible. She should let her sister have this." Her voice dropped even lower. "And honestly, hers is on her face. The damage is done. Why throw good money after bad?" The glass of water slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I didn't cry. I just cleaned up the shards, went back to my room, and pulled the covers over my head. From that day on, I was the sensible older sister. Every resource, every ounce of attention was funneled toward Rachel. All I ever got was the same tired refrain. "You're the older sister. You have to look out for Rachel." As I was ignored, the patch on my face grew from the size of a coin to cover nearly half my cheek, like a permanent flaw carved into porcelain. Snapping back to the present, I put the last piece of jewelry away. "Mom, I'm heading out." She finally glanced at me, a slight frown on her face. "Be here early tomorrow to help. Even if you're not the maid of honor, there's still a mountain of things to do." "I know." I walked out of my sister's room. In the living room, my father was laughing with his future son-in-law, Liam Ashton. When Liam saw me, his smile faded slightly. He gave a curt nod, a silent acknowledgement. His eyes flickered to the patch on my face for less than half a second before darting away. We had grown up together, inseparable childhood friends. Before he left for college abroad, he'd held my hand and promised, "Lindsay, wait for me." But when he returned, he found a me with a scarred face and a brilliant, beautiful sister by my side. He was disappointed. And I never explained that the groundbreaking proposals at the company, the ones that made Rachel shine, had all originated on my desk. Because, as my mother always said, the older sister has to support the younger one. I stepped out into the night. The wind was cool against my skin. I looked up at the moon. It was bright, round, and perfectly whole. I arrived the next day before dawn. Even stripped of my title, my duties were endless. From the final check of the floral arrangements to confirming the details of the banquet menu to running through the guest reception protocol one last time, I was a spinning top wound tight, never stopping for a moment. My mother was pleased with my compliance. She pulled me into the dressing room, directing the makeup artist on Rachel's final touches. "Our Rachel is a natural beauty. Look at that skin. A little makeup and she looks like an angel. She turned to me, a tight smile on her lips. Lindsay, you should have the artist put some concealer on you too. There will be a lot of guests today. Don't let it be too obvious. The patch on my face was too large. No amount of concealer could hide it. It only made my skin tone look uneven and more jarring. I'd tried once and given up. It's fine, Mom. I have to be backstage. There's no time. I could feel the pity in the eyes of the makeup artist and the other bridesmaids. I pretended not to notice. When the ceremony began, I stood in the darkest corner of the ballroom, a walkie-talkie in my hand, ready for any emergency. Rachel, wearing the gown I had picked for her, walked down the aisle on our father's arm toward Liam waiting at the center of the stage. She was breathtaking, a true princess. When my father placed Rachel's hand in Liam's, his eyes were red. He choked back a sob. Liam, I'm entrusting you with our family's most precious treasure. You have to take care of her. The hall erupted in applause. I felt like a complete outsider. Every detail of this wedding had consumed the last 6 months of my life. Even the down payment on the red sports car Rachel received as a wedding gift came from my savings. My parents had told me the family's finances were tight after years of paying for Rachel's treatments. They couldn't look cheap in front of the Ashtons. You're the older sister, they'd said. It's your duty to help out. But in this moment, no one remembered me. The officiant's voice boomed from the stage. Our beautiful bride, Rachel, is not only stunning, but also one of Mr. Ashton's most capable executives. She has single-handedly spearheaded several of the company's most critical projects. A true talent. I looked down, a bitter taste in my mouth. Those projects, those sleepless nights, they had all become jewels in her crown. During the reception, they moved from table to table. When they reached Liam's friends, one of them let out a low whistle. Hey, Liam, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Your new sister-in-law is something else? His eyes landed squarely on my face. A hush fell over the room. Rachel's face went pale, her hand tightening on Liam's arm. My mother quickly jumped in, forcing a laugh. Oh, she's always been a tomboy, all work and no play, the workhorse of our family. Liam raised his glass, his gaze sweeping over me with a cool indifference. Don't be an ass. This is Lindsay, my wife's sister. I picked up my own glass, drained it in one go, and offered a thin smile. Enjoy yourselves. I'm going to check on the kitchen. As I walked away, I heard the whispers behind me. Such a shame. I heard Liam and the older sister were childhood sweethearts. Yeah, but who would marry that? It's humiliating to even be seen with her. The younger one is gorgeous and capable. She and Liam are a perfect match. I slipped into the empty backstage area, finally able to breathe. My phone screen lit up with an old photo of Liam and me from high school. In it, the patch on my face was still small enough to be covered by makeup, and I was smiling, fearless. Liam's eyes in the picture were full of me. Lindsay, you weren't like this before. That's what he'd said when he came back, after seeing my face and meeting my talented sister. He was right. I wasn't. The bright, defiant girl I used to be had been murdered long ago by my parents' mantra, "You're the older sister, you have to give way." I deleted the photo, erasing a memory that had already rotted away. Rachel and Liam spent 2 weeks honeymooning on a private island. For those 2 weeks, the office was blissfully quiet. I poured all my energy into my new project, the Aura smart home system. The day Rachel returned, she walked straight into my office. Ugh, the honeymoon was so exhausting, she complained, though her tone was dripping with pride. Liam insisted on dragging me everywhere. I nodded. You should get some rest. Rest? No time for that. She sat down across from me and picked up my project proposal. Liam says the Aura project is critical. It's the company's core strategy for the second half of the year. There can't be any mistakes. A cold dread washed over me. And? I asked. Rachel looked up, flashing an innocent smile. And so, Liam has decided that I will be taking the lead. Lindsay, you have so much experience. You can be my second in command, help me steer the ship, okay? My fingers clenched into a fist, my nails digging into my palm. On what grounds? The words burned in my throat, but I couldn't force them out. I looked at her, and her eyes held the same entitled glint as they did when she was 10, snatching the only imported doll I'd ever owned from my hands. Back then, my mother had said the same thing. Rachel wants it. You're the older sister, just let her have it. Is this a company decision, or Liam's decision? I asked numbly. Is there a difference? Rachel laughed, clutching the proposal to her chest. Don't worry, sis. When the project succeeds, I won't forget your contribution. We're family. What's yours is mine. Why draw lines? She swept out of the room, leaving me alone in the suffocating chill. That evening, I went home. My parents were on the couch watching TV. "Did you eat?" my mother asked without looking up. I cut straight to the point. "The company gave Rachel the lead on the Aura project." My mother paused, then a wide smile spread across her face. "Really? That's wonderful. Our Rachel is so capable, such a huge responsibility right after getting married. Liam really knows how to pick them." My father nodded in agreement. "Rachel has the drive, and with her big sister helping her out, the project is sure to be a success." My heart sank into a black abyss. I was the one who developed that project, from start to finish. "I know," my mother said, her tone infuriatingly matter-of-fact. "But you're her sister. Isn't it your job to support her? She's the boss's wife now. If she's secure, your life at the company will be easier too. Why can't you see the big picture?" "The big picture?" I laughed, a hollow sound. "Is my big picture just handing over everything I've ever worked for to her?" "Lindsay!" My father's voice was sharp, his face darkening. "Is that any way to speak to your mother? After all the sacrifices this family has made for your sister over the years, you can't handle a little setback to help pave her way?" He stood up, his voice rising. "Has that disease on your face twisted your personality too? Made you this bitter and jealous?" I stared at the two people I called my parents, and they felt like complete strangers. They couldn't see my hard work, couldn't see my pain. All they saw was my flaw and Rachel's perfection. I took a deep, shaky breath, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Fine, I get it." I turned to leave. "Where are you going?" my mother called after me. "Work!" I didn't look back. I couldn't let them see the tears in my eyes. I stayed at the office all night. I compiled every core file, every piece of research for the project, and I bundled it all into an email to Rachel. At the very end, I wrote a single line. "This is the last time I will ever step aside for you." For the next month, I was Rachel's subordinate. I watched as Liam's eyes filled with admiration and love every time he looked at her. Occasionally, his gaze would pass over me, and the disappointment seemed to deepen. Then one day, my father called, his voice frantic. "Lindsay, get to the hospital now, your mother—" She collapsed. By the time I arrived, my mother was already in the emergency room. My father was pacing outside, his face ashen, while Rachel sobbed in Liam's arms. A doctor emerged, his expression grim. "She's in acute liver failure. She needs a transplant immediately." "A transplant?" My father's voice trembled. "But a donor?" "We've registered her on the national network, but there's no telling how long the wait will be," the doctor explained. "The best option is a live donation from a relative. Her blood type is B negative, Rh negative. It's extremely rare. Are any of you a match?" We all looked at each other. Dad was type A, Liam was type O. Rachel and I were sent for blood tests. Every second in that waiting room felt like an eternity. Rachel clutched my hand, her palm icy and shaking. "Lindsay, I'm so scared." I squeezed her hand back, patting it gently. An hour later, a nurse returned with the results. "Who is Lindsay?" "I am," I said, standing up. "Your blood type is a perfect match with the patient's. After a preliminary evaluation, you are a viable donor." Every eye in the room fixed on me. Rachel's hand slipped from mine as she let out a long, shuddering breath of relief. The nurse then turned to her, her tone clinical. "Miss Rachel, your blood type is B positive. You are not a match." Rachel froze. "We all knew Mom had what they called golden blood, the rarest type. We'd always assumed at least one of us had inherited it. No one ever imagined the lucky one would be me, the flawed, forgotten daughter." My mother was moved to the ICU. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. I went in to see her beforehand. She was a frail figure in the hospital bed, hooked up to a web of tubes. When she saw me, her clouded eyes brightened, and she weakly reached out her hand. I walked over and took it. She opened her mouth, her voice a faint rasp. I leaned in close, my ear next to her lips. "Rachel, my sweet girl, I knew you would save me." She called me by my sister's name as she squeezed my hand. In that instant, I felt the blood turn to ice in my veins. At death's door, the only person in her heart was her perfect, flawless daughter. I wasn't even worthy of being named. Slowly, deliberately, I pried her fingers from my hand. I looked at her, my face a blank mask. When I stepped out of the room, my father and Liam rushed toward me. "Lindsay, how is she?" Seeing the same desperate hope on their faces, I almost laughed. "The surgery can happen," I said, my voice clear and cold. "But I have a condition." Everyone froze. My father was the first to recover, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "Lindsay, what are you talking about? That's your mother in there. You're making conditions?" "Yes, she's my mother," I said. meeting his furious gaze. But I'm the one who will be on the operating table, having a piece of my liver cut out. My eyes swept past him, past Liam, and finally landed on Rachel. I want you to write a statement of severance. It will state that by donating this organ, I, Lindsay, have fulfilled my final familial duty, and from this day forward, I have no connection to this family. You're insane, my father sputtered, shaking with rage as he pointed a finger at me. This is monstrous. You'd disown your own parents over an organ? I ignored him, adding my next condition. I also want a company-wide announcement clarifying that I was the sole creator and leader of the Aura project, and I want Rachel to apologize to me in front of the entire project team. Rachel, hiding behind Liam, put on her familiar wounded expression. Sister, this is too much. You know Mom can't lose you. Really? I cut her off. And did you know that I couldn't lose my parents' love when you all abandoned me time and time again? And compared to the decades you've spent exploiting me, my demands are merciful. Liam's face was a storm of conflicting emotions. He tried to mediate. Lindsay, isn't severing ties a bit extreme? We're family. It doesn't have to come to this. The project, I'll handle it, I promise. I'll do it right now. Mr. Ashton, I said, my tone formal and distant, this is a family matter. Please don't concern yourself. I turned back to my father, who was now speechless with rage. Those are my terms. You agree now, write the statement and prepare the announcement and apology. Or you can wait for a matching donor who may never appear. I turned as if to walk away. Wait! My father choked out. Fine! You're all grown up now, aren't you? He spat the words through clenched teeth. I'll write it! And I can't wait to see how a monster with a scarred face like you survives without this family. He got paper and a pen from the nurse's station and scribbled furiously, then slammed the sheet down in front of me. Sign it and go save your mother. I picked it up. It was filled with vitriol, ending with the line, From this day, Lindsay has no relation to the family. I took out the lipstick from my purse and pressed a crimson thumbprint over my name. Mr. Ashton, be my witness. Liam looked at me, a deep, unreadable expression in his eyes. I will. Rachel started to protest, but a sharp look from Liam silenced her. She glared at me, her face a mask of resentment. I felt nothing but a vast, desolate peace. I was finally getting back what was mine, but I had to use my own body as a bargaining chip. How pathetic. The next morning, just before the surgery, I received the company-wide memo. It was on official letterhead, detailing how the Aura project was independently conceived and developed by me, Lindsay. Rachel was listed as a late-stage assistant. Liam's signature was at the bottom. Moments later, my phone rang. It was Rachel. Are you satisfied now, Lindsay? Everyone at the office is laughing at me. You've ruined me. I just took back what was mine, I replied coolly. You! She was so furious she couldn't speak, and slammed the phone down. I deleted the email, turned off my phone, and changed into a surgical gown. As the nurse wheeled me toward the operating room, my father and Liam stood by the door. My father's expression was a tangled mess of anger and regret. He opened his mouth, but only a sigh escaped. Liam stepped forward. Lindsay, he said in a low voice, I'm sorry and thank you. I didn't look at him. I just told the nurse, let's go. As the anesthesia flooded my system and my consciousness faded, I had one last thought. This is for the best. Cutting out a piece of my liver felt like severing the last physical tie to this family, the last piece of flesh and blood that bound me to them. After this, my debt was paid. I owed them nothing. The surgery was a success. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital recovering. During that time, my father and Rachel visited every day, their attitudes a complete reversal. My father peeled apples for me. Rachel massaged my stiff legs. They tiptoed around me, desperately trying to mend a relationship that had shattered beyond repair. Liam came a few times, too. He never entered the room, just stood quietly in the doorway, watching me for a moment before leaving the flowers and fruit he'd brought. There was nothing left for us to say. My mother was recovering well in a regular ward. My father had told her everything as soon as she was lucid. She was silent for a long time. When she finally came to see me, she held my hand and for the first time truly looked at the patch on my face. Lindsay, she whispered, her voice thick with tears. I'm so sorry. I pulled my hand away and shook my head. You have nothing to be sorry for. You just never loved me. An apology was too light a word to carry the weight of more than a decade of my suffering. My mother's eyes welled up, but I felt no pity. I no longer needed her tears. The day I was discharged, I went straight to the office. My desk had been cleared off. My colleagues greeted me with a newfound respect, their eyes holding a hint of guilt. The story of what Rachel had done was now common knowledge. Her reputation was in ruins. I walked into Liam's office and placed an envelope on his desk. "What's this?" he asked. My resignation." His eyes widened. "Why?" "Lindsay, I know I was wrong. I misjudged you. The truth is out now. The Aura project is yours. I'll give you whatever you need to finish it." "There's no need. I have no feelings left for this project. Just like I have no feelings left for this family or for you." "Is this about Rachel?" he asked, his voice urgent. "I've put her on leave. She won't interfere with your work ever again." "No, it's not about her," I said, shaking my head. "Liam, I'm just tired. I don't want to fight anymore, and I don't want to give anything away ever again." I looked at the man I had loved for so many years. Do you know what hurt the most? It wasn't the whispers or the stares. It was you, when you came back and said, "You weren't like this before." As if I had chosen this. My own family pushed me into becoming this person, piece by piece. I thought you would be the one person who could see past it, who would stand by me. But you didn't. Your disappointment was the final blow. Liam opened his mouth, but no words came out. I turned and opened the door. "Liam, congratulations on your marriage. I wish you and Rachel all the best." Without a backward glance, I walked out of the building where I had poured 5 years of my life. The sun on my skin felt warmer than it ever had before. I went back to the house one last time. There were ties I needed to sever myself. When I opened the door, Rachel was on the sofa with a face mask on, and my father was reading the financial news. Nothing had changed. Rachel immediately ripped off the mask, a placating smile on her face. "Sis, you're back. Are you feeling better?" My father lowered his paper. "It's good you're back. Let bygones be bygones. Your mother misses you. You should move back in." They thought I was here to surrender. I ignored them and went to my room. It was the same as I'd left it, except for a few of Rachel's makeup products scattered on my desk and some of her dresses hanging in my closet. My space had always been her territory. I pulled out 2 large suitcases and started packing. Rachel followed me in, her voice laced with anxiety. "What are you doing? Dad told you to stop this nonsense." I kept packing, methodically placing my life into the suitcases. My father appeared in the doorway, his voice a low growl. "Lindsay, have you not caused enough trouble? You donated your liver and this family is grateful, but that doesn't give you the right to blackmail your parents. And I'm telling you that ridiculous severance paper is worthless." I stopped. "Blackmail?" I laughed. "Dad, for more than 10 years I dreamed of going back to being 13, back to before I got sick, back to when you still loved me. But I don't want that anymore." I walked past them, into the living room, and retrieved a worn, yellowed notebook from the pocket of an old school bag. "Did you think I was just throwing a tantrum?" I opened the notebook on the coffee table. Inside, starting from when I was 16, was a detailed ledger of every penny I had ever earned and spent. "Dad, you always said the business was struggling, that money was tight, but Rachel's tutoring, her after-school art classes, did you know I paid for all of it? With my scholarship money and the cash I earned from tutoring on weekends? You thought the company paid for Mom to see that specialist in the city. That was my entire signing bonus, the money I got by giving up my spot in the master's program I had dreamed of. And Rachel's final thesis, the one you bragged about? I was the one who pulled 3 all-nighters building her model and writing her paper. My own final project was something I threw together in 3 days just to get a passing grade." I flipped through the pages, tears streaming down my face. Rachel was pale, speechless. My father's expression shifted from anger to disbelief. He took the notebook, his hands trembling as he scanned the dates, the amounts, the reasons. Why didn't you say anything?" "I tried," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "When I was a senior in high school, I wanted to apply to art school. You said it was a waste of money, a dead-end career, and that I should study finance to help you at the company. A week later, you signed Rachel up for piano lessons. You said a girl needs a few talents to marry well. My sophomore year of college, I wanted to use my own savings to try laser treatment for my face, just to see if it would work. Mom said we had to save the money for Rachel's follow-up appointments. Every time I spoke up, you shut me down with, 'You're the older sister. You have to be sensible.' After a while, I stopped trying, because it wasn't that you didn't know. It was that you didn't care." His hands shook so violently the notebook fell to the floor. "And this." I pulled another folder from my suitcase and emptied its contents. One was the receipt for the down payment on Rachel's red sports car, with my name as the payer. The other was a copy of the prenuptial agreement from the Ashtons. It clearly stipulated that the bride's family was to provide a vehicle of equal value as a gift. "Mom, Dad." I looked at my mother, who had emerged from her room, drawn by the shouting. Her face was white. She had heard everything. "You said you had no money left after paying for Rachel's illness. You said, you're the older sister, it's your duty to help." The tears still flowed, but now I wanted to laugh. "But you forgot. I had the same illness. I was the one you gave up on. All your money and even the money I earned for myself went to her. Why do you still expect me to be the sensible one?" "Lindsay!" my mother shrieked, lunging at me. I caught her wrist. "Don't touch me. The moment I lay down on that operating table, I told myself, the liver I gave you repays you for giving me life. You birthed me. I saved you. We are even." I threw her hand back and turned to my father. "And what I gave you was even more. Your company's first major contract? I got you that meeting through my college professor. When your credit line was frozen, I gave you the money I had saved for my treatment to keep the business afloat. I told you I'd won the lottery." I pointed a trembling finger at Rachel. "You raised her to be a perfect, useless porcelain doll. Everything she has, she took from me, and I am done paying. This wasn't my home, it was my debt. For more than 10 years, I raised your daughter for you, with my youth, my health, my love, and my future. And now, the debt is paid." My father collapsed onto the sofa. He had always seen himself as the patriarch, the rock of the family. He never realized that the daughter he had destroyed was the one holding it all together. My mother stared at my face and finally broke down, her wails echoing through the house. "Lindsay, I was wrong. I was so wrong." Too late. When I needed love the most, you chose to abandon me. Now I no longer need it. I zipped up my suitcases and walked out without another look. "Dad," I said, my hand on the doorknob, "I'm going to have that severance document framed. It's not a worthless piece of paper. It's my Declaration of Independence." As I dragged my bags out of that prison, I found Liam standing by the door. He looked like he'd been there for a while. "Lindsay, Mr. Ashton, you're blocking my way." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a raw, agonizing regret. "I'm divorcing Rachel. Oh," I said with a nod. "Congratulations on cutting your losses." I walked around him and didn't look back. "I left that city and checked into a hospital. I wanted to fix my face. The doctor told me that too much time had passed. A full recovery was impossible, but with systematic treatment, they could stop it from spreading and even lighten the color. I accepted it, just as I had accepted the fact that I was unloved. The treatment was long. In my spare time, I painted in the hospital gardens, reviving a childhood dream. Occasionally, I heard news from old colleagues. Liam had divorced Rachel, leaving her with nothing. The Ashtons, an old money family, valued their reputation above all else. A daughter-in-law who had built her success on her sister's back was a stain they wouldn't tolerate. After being cast out, Rachel returned to the company, but she was incompetent. The Aura project withered in her hands. My father's business didn't fare much better. Without the support of the Ashtons, his company went bankrupt within 6 months. My mother's health declined steadily. Rachel couldn't handle the mess alone. Once, an old coworker asked me cautiously over the phone, "Lindsay, do you hate them?" I looked at the sunflowers blooming in the garden and smiled. "No, I don't. Hate requires energy. It requires emotion. And they were no longer worthy of either. I had already blocked every number, deleted every contact, and severed all ties with my past. A year later, my paintings were featured in a small local gallery. They sold surprisingly well. I used the money to pay for a cosmetic skin graft surgery. On the day of the procedure, I signed the consent forms alone. As the anesthesia took hold, I remembered Rachel on the eve of her wedding, calling me a flawed gem. A flawed gem, she had called me, but she was wrong. A gem doesn't just break. It can be recut, reshaped, finding a new brilliance from its fractures. After shattering my past, I had finally carved out a future that was entirely my own. The surgery was a success. The white patch that had defined me for over a decade was gone, replaced by a patch of new skin, slightly lighter than the rest. It looked like a faint cloud. It still wasn't perfect, but it was mine.